Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. And every year after an election, we have Mike Dunn in to talk about what happened. Mike Dunn, welcome from Greater Salisbury Committee.
Greg, it's great to be here. Thanks.
So we had an election.
I heard.
We'll talk about some county stuff because
Sure.
we've talked about this stuff before and kind of get some closure on it. The biggest thing in the county was voters, by a large number, want an elected school board.
By an overwhelming number, when you factor in that there were really two options, if you will, for the elected school board, and it ended up with about 70%. I wasn't really surprised. You look there, 95% of the counties in the United States of America have an elected school board. And this was one of those, as I looked at it, we've always done it this way, but is this potentially the way that the rest of the world is working?
Right.
And the rest of the world isn't working this way. And so
Right.
after about a decades-long push, here it is, and off we go.
Yeah. I guess the local historical context, Worcester did this about 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Gloom and doom was predicted. Nothing really changed.
Well, I don't view, things don't change. I think the elected school board is very important stuff, but I think people really misunderstand, in a general sense, the school board is really there. It's about policy, and it's
Right.
about, back and forth with the superintendent and everything. And I think a lot of the impetus for this was budgetary and financial.
Right.
But they're somewhat limited in terms of making changes in
Right.
that
So
regard.
many state mandates that it's
Yeah.
very difficult for them to really act
Yeah.
in an arbitrary way.
What I think will be interesting moving forward, I had conversation with one of the advocates for the school board the other day, an email conversation. And if you look at our neighboring counties, you can use Worcester, you can use Dorchester. The challenge, believe it or not, at least if we follow that trend, is a lot of the races are often non-competitive. And by that I mean there aren't 2 and 3 and 4 people signing up per district. In some of the districts, it's difficult to get one person
Right.
to sign up. And I actually suggested, and want to try to pursue this, maybe a way to ease the citizens, if you will, of Wicomico County. This has sort of been a somewhat driven by one party, the Republican State Central Committee has kind of been the driver of this. But I think as we move forward, perhaps a joint panel, a joint working group made up of the Republican State Central Committee and the Democratic State Central Committee, with the goal of just letting people know about the fact that, hey, here's where we are. We now have an elected school board, and it would be good if we had candidates.
Right.
So maybe a way to everybody embrace, this is now what we have. So how can we kind of encourage people to look at it and actually consider filing here in a few years?
Right, and wearing your Greater Salisbury Committee hat, one of the concerns I have is about the diversity thing. So the way the districts are drawn, it's difficult in terms of minority-majority area of constituency, that probably there would just be a single black member, African-American member, minority member of the school board. Yet so many of the kids in the school are in the minority class. So any concerns about that, or is...
Well, if you look at the makeup of our current Wicomico County Council,
no one has a kid in school.
well, it's also all male. So you want to talk about diversity, we...
Well, Maria's on there.
I'm talking on the board, I'm sorry, on the county council.
Oh,
So,
true,
yeah,
yes.
on the county council,
Yeah.
we have 7 men. That's not a knock, but that doesn't exactly represent well. Our current school board has one woman.
Right.
I don't think any of the school board members have children in school.
Right.
So to your point, yeah, it's a concern, and that's why I kind of dropped this idea. I think the best way that we could handle this as a community, the way the Greater Salisbury Committee would look at it, is let's educate. Let's get everybody on board. Let's not make this overtly partisan, which is certainly a challenging thing in today's world. But let's get both parties working together to try to encourage good, reasonable people to consider taking a seat. That's what public service, at least at this level, is always supposed to be about: people that care and people that want to make a difference. So if we can perhaps work together to get that ball rolling, then I think maybe we'll have an outcome that we can all be happy with, and we'll address the diversity questions and challenges that we know are probably out there.
Right, and it's not saying that the African American can't get elected if they live in a white district. Certainly in this county, they have before. It's definitely happened. So it could happen if you have a passion. I was watching the Worcester County election for school board closely this time because I want to get acclimated in how that works when it comes to Wicomico. Yeah. And down there they run nonpartisan, but I noticed in the one area there in West Ocean City, the one candidate who was clearly a Republican had all of his signs up next to Trump signs.
Sure.
And the incumbent member of the school board had her signs up next to the Clinton signs. Yeah. So you could tell what party they were in from that. Yeah. And even in an area, a precinct that was overwhelmingly won by Trump, the Democrat, the incumbent on the school board, won because she has such a passion for education.
And I'm hoping many of the people that were concerned about an elected school board were concerned mainly because they don't want it to become this overtly partisan political position. I think most of us look at our schools and our education system, and short of the federal and state mandates, we want good local people that are passionate about education, or perhaps who have a good background in other areas that can bring a mindset to the table. I think that only makes it better. I've spoken to many of the former Wicomico County School Board members and current ones who are friends, and they have to a person said always that the decisions they make have nothing to do with politics, have nothing to do with how the Republican Party or the Democratic Party might be leaning. It's about trying to make the best decisions to promote the public schools in Wicomico County and the decisions that will help the students and the teachers and everything. So I'm hoping that's where we end up.
Right, and I've made this point before. We've seen school board critics get on the school board, and they become part of the problem, and they kind of change their attitude a little bit about what's going on. They understand things better than they did.
Well, they do, and we, I think we have two members now, at least here in Wicomico County, who, they kind of have had their eyes opened a little bit and have acknowledged that there's, there's not a bunch of hidden drawers and secrets. It's just it's mundane, if you will, school board policy, and hopefully we can, at the end of the day, my hope is that there's been seems to me a target on the back of the Board of Education, whether that's the superintendent or board members of the school systems. I'm just hoping we can help reverse that, and certainly we'll be working to make that happen.
Right. I'm beating this to death, but to me the key for them is to have the good rapport with the county council so there's trust. Yeah. And they can all work together on this stuff, which they seem to do this last time a little bit better.
Well, I know, my good friend Kim Hudson, your friend Kim Hudson, that was one of the things that she was trying to do, and she understood fully during her time on the Board of Education that you cannot have this level of, what are you doing, County Council? What are you doing, Board of Education? And I know one of her priorities, and I know it's a priority with Dr. Hanlon, the new superintendent, is to open that line of discussion with the county council members. And if you can take away the conspiracy theories that are out there, it just only bodes well for a better function and flow between the two entities and get them on the same page, which is, I think, very important.
Charter amendments were on the ballot. There were 9 of them, which was a lot. I made a big deal about it. I've been criticized a little bit for making such a big deal about it, but I think when you mess with the county's constitution, it is a big I'm if you don't inform the voters, that's a big deal. So we tried to do that with the paper. I I thought there'd be some controversy with these things, but they all passed 60, 70% of the vote.
They did.
The numbers were different enough that people didn't just go in and vote yes on all of them.
Yeah.
So you got a sense that they did measure some of these. So they had good comprehension as to what was going on. But what's the thought on the charter amendments?
Well, first and foremost, I think that while you apparently got some criticism for it, and I take you
It
at
was
your
just
word.
like a big, like, who cares? Why
I
do you
think
keep
it
going on
does.
about this?
I think it did. I salute you. I
Thank you.
salute the front page coverage. You went in depth. It was my personal scorecard. It's what I used to know what these various resolutions and charter changes were calling for. So I salute that, and I applaud it, and I thank you for that. So apparently, I had a theory, for what it's worth, that we're not the state of California, where they live by their process of
80-page ballot.
yeah, the proposition X, Y,
Yeah.
Z's, and 1, 2, 3, 4s. Here in Wycomico County, in Salisbury area, traditionally, when it's election time, you go in and there's a few slots and a few people. This was a bit of a challenge for us to see 9 charter amendments. I had a theory, again, which I expressed to a member of the county council several months ago, that I thought the default position for the average voter when they went in and saw all of those 9 would be something like, well, if they're on the ballot, I guess some good and well-intentioned people gave it some good thought.
Right.
And while I might not be paying close attention, I think I'll probably vote for them.
Right.
As it turns out, I'm not saying that that's where everybody went, but as you said, all of them passed in the 60 to 70% range, and while there were some disparities in the numbers between the two, they all passed. And
Right.
so I guess at the end of the day, people thought they were good ideas, and here they are. They're now the law of the land, or soon will be.
With all the suspicion of government, I kind of thought people would go in there and go, no, we're not going to change anything. And they'd
Yeah.
all vote no.
Well, interesting, I was on the phone with someone this morning, and Wycomico County's vote totals were about 4,000 to 5,000 people more
Right.
than the vote totals for these initiatives.
Right.
So it says that a lot of people did step back and
Right.
go, I don't know enough about this, I'm just going to not vote at all. But I guess, as you framed it in your series of articles in your front page, a lot of these, depending on who you spoke with, if County Executive Culver was sitting here,
Right.
he would have said X, and if Council Member Kilmer or Cannon was sitting here, they would have said Y. They were putting, at least Mr. Culver was kind of presenting this as power grabs that he didn't think were appropriate, and whether they were or whether they're not, I guess the electorate decided that these were changes that were appropriate.
Someone suggested to me that this was sort of a referendum on him.
Well,
Do you get that sense?
I get the sense that the growing tension between the county executive and the county council is real. I look at the tension and I think it's incremental. It has been one thing after another that has just led them down a different path. 80% of the time, the two are in lockstep with the various things that come before them. But I think that there is a growing sense that the tension is real. And I'm sure that some people were framing this as this is in some way a call against the county executive. I haven't spoken to Mr. Culver since this occurred, but I suspect he woke up Wednesday morning a little bit less than happy with the results. County council members, as they see it, doing their due diligence. 2 or 3 or 4 of these items were clearly just housekeeping.
Right.
I don't think
Leftovers
I
from
don't
previous,
think exactly.
yeah.
I don't think they meant a lot, but a few of them that got into personnel and law department, I think those were most definitely framed within the confines of a political argument. And
Right.
if you look at it that way, the county executive came out on the wrong side of that political argument. He was clearly some opinion pieces that were in your paper and other publications. He clearly thought that these were power grabs, so he was staking his turf, and the county council was saying otherwise, and the voters have responded. So it's to be determined what they really think.
Is it better for the county, for the community to have a little tension between the branches, or like elbows into the basket, make a stronger basketball team, or is it better for everyone to be kumbaya?
Well, I think it depends on the nature of the conflict. I spent some time on the Salisbury City Council, as you
Yes, you
know,
did.
and conflict or differences of opinion and a council, whether
Right.
a city council, a county council, a state legislature, a Congress, if they're pursuing things that they believe are in the best cause, then I think that's perfectly fine, and that natural tension that would be there. That goes on since we started all of this, all these years ago. It gets difficult when you sense that it's personal, that it's agenda driven. That's where I think when the tension kind of gets in the way and good governance falls by the wayside. I think we can all certainly agree that in Washington, D.C., regardless of what happened the other day, there's a sense that much of what's been going on from Congress over the years has been personal and to the detriment of policy then being enacted. I don't see us there here in Wicomico County now. I don't get a sense that any members of the county council want to bring us to that state of gridlock. I just think we might be at a time where there's just, again, these incremental little battles have occurred and have just left some bad feelings and some stains, and they're going to have to try to work through it, and I hope that they can.
Right, and so on the big issues, the budget's gone well.
Yeah.
The Warwick Initiative, while difficult, succeeded.
Yes.
So whether, like, who's going to be the lawyer, that's truly inside baseball, which probably doesn't affect the public as much as you would think.
I look at that, perhaps it won't affect the public probably. I just look at it from, again, the seat that I once held. Sometimes legal opinion, not sometimes, often legal opinion is the default. Okay, Mr. County Attorney or Mrs. County Attorney or City Attorney, what does the law say here? When you have two different lawyers interpreting what the law is,
Right.
and you have a county council looking to its attorney and a county executive looking to its, and on some basic issues those attorneys see things differently, that's where I think you run into the potential for some challenges. I know that when I sat at that table as a legislator, it didn't matter what then Mayor Barry Tillman thought about what the law was or what I might have thought about the law was. In theory, the law is. And I think that we need one voice. I don't think we need competing legal opinions. I don't think that serves the public well. And so I'm hoping that despite what occurred the other day, that whole law question within the county, that's certainly what we're encouraging, that's the kind of that's a road to potential
Right.
gridlock and challenges, that's all. Doesn't mean that the lawyer's opinion is right or wrong, but you got to start somewhere.
Right. Well,
With an opinion.
I actually didn't believe Bob Culver when he said he wanted to change the law department just to save money.
Right.
I thought he wanted to put one of his buddies in there.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case at all.
No.
He's very sincere in this.
Oh,
So I'm embarrassed that I was so cynical about it.
If there's one thing that Bob is he's governing on, his principle, if he can save,
He's going to save money.
if he can save $27,000
Yeah.
on line item X, doggone it, that's $27,000 that is saved that is not government spending. So
Yeah.
I take Bob at his word that that's why he was doing it, and then it went down this other path.
Right. And I remember writing editorials at the time when they created the county law department under the county executive that it was just going to be this giant resting place for old lawyers who could make a lot of money and get great pensions. And that's what happened. And Bob wanted to attack that. So I actually admire that he recognized that and did it.
Yeah, and now I'm just hoping again that having two lawyers to turn to for your opinions when in theory you're one entity trying to make the best decisions for the people of Wicomico County is probably something that I hope we can get worked out a little bit.
A group that you work closely with, the Salisbury Wicomico Economic Development Corporation, their big night meeting is next week.
Yeah.
You look at the economic reports, and things are pretty good right now.
They are. Dave Ryan, he's been at this for 23 years, and he says this is the busiest time that he's ever had. He's He and Swed are doing great work. He's going to share more of that economic news at the Greater Salisbury Committee meeting coming up.
Monday, yeah.
Then he's doing his annual update at Headquarters Live a few nights after that.
And we're going to have Dave on the show here right after Mike is on the next week. So
Yeah. So Dave's, the news is good. We have more people employed in Wicomico County than at any time in our history, and it's good. Dave talks all the time about economic development today is a lot different than what it was,
Right.
30 years ago when you built a plant, you ran some utilities out, you found a company, you put jobs in.
Right.
Now it really is about place and it's about diversity, and he's figured that out, and he's pulling us all along with what he knows to be the reality out there. And New York must agree. Our bond rating was, Wicomico County just went up and got a favorable
Great, yeah.
again. So that's a lot of hard work goes into that. So
And those are very people who are not in love with the county by any means, and their belief in the county is all based on their own finances. So you better be good.
That's right. And we have, again, they just went up there a few weeks ago, and you reported it out that things are good. So, Dave is excited. If Dave's excited, I'm excited. I've always said that. When Dave Ryan, back again when I was on the president of the city council, anytime Dave Ryan wanted time on the agenda, it was like, okay, this is good. So Dave's doing, he's doing a great job, and he's taking SWED to a different level, and we obviously support and salute that.
Yeah, and he's got a report, and I'm going to actually start running it in the paper each month, the economic report. And it used to be in the old the Business Journal, the chamber publication used to have it. And you could sort of get a sense of what was going on in the community with the retail sales taxes, how much revenue came in, the amount of passengers at the airport. It measured all kinds of different things that told a lot about the community. So we're going to start running that, and he's making those statistics available to everyone, and it's really instructive.
I think it's helpful. I think people like to have that snapshot. One of the things that's interesting is people are asking, okay, well, why is our economic picture so good?
Right.
Okay, these numbers are what they are, but why? And again, Dave has all sorts of explanations, which he'll get into with you, and I'll leave that to him. But he's doing his job, he's doing his homework, and this is a place. Delmarva is a place, and it's a place that, when compared in 2016 to the rest of the universe, you can go do your full 8-hour job. You can come home, and 20 minutes after you're home, you can have your kayak in a river.
Right.
And 20 minutes after you leave your office, in many of the areas around us, you're stuck 25 to 30 minutes still from being in your driveway. So place is starting to matter, and we got a pretty good place down here, and people are starting to figure that out.
Yeah, we're really lucky that way.
Yeah.
On the 17th, November 17th, our mayor will celebrate his first year in office with a State of the City address.
Yeah.
Got a little preview of it. And again, very optimistic. He's an optimistic guy.
Yes.
But again, a lot of energy with this thing still.
You think about, okay, so here we are taping on November the 10th.
Yeah.
And in a week he's going to do this. He's only been the mayor for a year.
It feels like 20 years.
Well, that's why I'm sort of hitting pause, and I'm trying to remind. When we sent the message out to the Greater Salisbury Committee membership the other day about the state of the city, I said, reminder, he's only been the mayor for a year. Look at all that's happened. Look at all the energy. Look at what's coming. And so if this can happen in a year, what can happen moving forward? The long-awaited, if you need a symbol, a literal symbol of Salisbury moving forward, just drive down East Main Street. Because you can't drive down East Main Street right now because there's a hole in the street.
Right.
Because for the first time in 100 years, we have terracotta piping under the roadbed that is coming out. The whole streetscaping is beginning. The highest connection fiber that exists on the universe is going to run right underneath that roadbed. So, things are happening. And so credit to Jake and the job that he's doing. Again, Dave Ryan, Bob Culver saving money. It's just, all these things add up, I think.
Yeah, he fascinates me because just this week in the paper, there's again like 3 or 4 pictures of him at different events. Yeah. And they had a baby in the middle of all
Yes,
of
he
it.
did.
So, but it's one of those things where it's like, I don't think, well, he's not doing his duties at home. I know he is, and you'll run into him. You'll go, "How are you doing?" He goes, "Yeah, I got an hour's sleep last night." And he seems fine.
He is indefatigable, is what he is.
Yeah.
He is. My good friend Jim Berkman, the head lacrosse coach at Salisbury University, I've always said of Jim that he's wired differently than the rest of us.
Yeah.
Jake is wired differently. I'm not saying he's wired better than the rest of us.
Jim has an intensity. Yeah.
But in terms of that inexhaustible passion, that inexhaustible ability to bring it every day, Berkman and Jake Day, again, their internal wiring is different than it is for most of us. And all we have to do is sit back and go, thank you, we're glad that you're here and that you're calling this place home, because
Right.
look at the things that they're doing for us. So Jake certainly fits into that category.
Well, the mayor's speech will be in the Wacomico Room at the Commons on the 17th, and it's a public event. It's always interesting.
Yes, well, and it's not draped in the polishings of politics.
Yeah.
I think it's draped in the, hey, let's get the good news out about the city of Salisbury and let's salute all that's going on.
Some of the stuff that Greater Salisbury is working on regionally, the wind projects offshore, and Wallops has always been a favorite topic of your all's. What's going on with that stuff?
Well, with Wallops Island, the most important thing that we've all been working on regionally, and it's been an extraordinary effort, has been trying to land that Triton unmanned aircraft system contract that Northrop Grumman is shipping between one of 3 Navy bases.
Right, and there's all the glamour with the rockets, but this is a real thing.
Well, and that's one of the things
and
about
it's a
Wallops.
consistent thing.
Yeah, is
Yeah.
that this would be it's a 20-year build out. It's 400 jobs that will all be above the median income level. It could be game changing, and the level of cooperation. The state of Maryland and Virginia and Delaware, we all fired off letters and it got people's attention. Vice President Joe Biden, he's a Delaware guy. He has stepped into the fray. So we're competing against 2 bases in Florida. And in the first quarter of next year is when we're led to believe a decision will be made. Offshore wind, and Katarina Enerfelt out at Archon, a GSC member, Matt Drew, they are working.
Both very driven people as well.
They
Yeah.
went up to Block Island, Rhode Island, a few weeks ago, saw firsthand the offshore wind project that has happened there. They are trying to position this area as a manufacturing hub for the offshore wind that is coming off the coast of Ocean City. And it's all about jobs. We probably can't build the turbines, we can't build the platforms, but we can build, there are 400 or so moving parts per
Right.
turbine. We can build the ladders that go between.
Right.
We can build the door. There's just so much, and Katarina is doing such a great job connecting us throughout the state of Maryland. Matt Drew, Ernie Colburn at the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce. It is, again, a real strong partnership, and we're doing the best we can to plant some seeds and get some actual jobs
And when
here.
people say, what do you do? This is the kind of thing where you try to get these people together and
Yeah.
create a forum for all this.
Well, that's what we do. That's what the Greater Salisbury Committee does. We sit in a unique position where we're able to kind of, when there are these massive projects, our job is to go, if you will, be part of it, help connect the dots, and help to move these initiatives forward that, again, I like to use the phrase game changing. If we got the Triton project and some of these lower offshore wind jobs, manufacturing, permanent jobs here, it could literally change the face of Delmarva, so in a positive way. So that's what we're working toward.
Community has some momentum right now. Everyone's like, okay, this has got to stop at some point. I don't see it stopping. Do you feel the momentum still?
I do. I don't know how else to put it. The short answer is I
Yeah.
do. The right people are at the right place, and they all seem to be working on the same page. And Salisbury, Wycomico County, the Lower Shore, we are the 42nd fastest job market in the United States of America when you take Sussex, Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset. And of the 41 that are ahead of us, everybody who's watching right now knows them, has visited them, and there we sit at number 42. And so it's an exciting time. It doesn't mean that everything is good. We still have lots of challenges within this community that are being addressed. But when you look at the macro picture is pretty strong. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon, knock on wood, and all of that.
He's Mike Dunn from the Greater Salisbury Committee. We love having him on after the election, and again, more insightful interpretation of things going on around us. Thanks, Mike, for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Greg.
I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. Another edition of One-on-One right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and One-on-One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.